Okay, we're going to ask you some questions that are individual and specific to your campaigns, okay? Mr. Lee, I'm going to begin with you because you've come into this race basically as an outsider with no political experience. So, I'm wondering, who are you consulting on policy issues? I'm talking like education, I'm talking like the Department of Corrections, etc. Who are you consulting with? Who are you getting advice from?
Yeah. What you'd have to ask me specifics about Department of Corrections you mentioned, for example. So
yes.
I've met with the current Commissioner of Corrections. I've also worked in corrections for about 17 years. I've worked in reentry programs, nonprofit reentry programs that have partnerships with the state. Actually met with the governor and the previous Department of Corrections Commissioner on how it is that we can more effectively reenter folks into society. So I would approach government the same way that I would approach folks in my business. You find experts around subjects. I've met with the Department of Education. I've actually met with the head of schools of Shelby County, who has the largest public school district in the state, who has endorsed my campaign for governor, and I've met with him several times about education reform. So go to the experts.
Mr. Lee, thank you. Bob.
Thank you, Katina. Mr. Dean, I want to talk about the endorsement that Mr. Lee just talked about. The superintendent for Shelby County Schools, the largest school district in the state, Dorsey Hobson, recently endorsed Mr. Lee. The TEA has endorsed you. Education has been one of your top priorities as governor or as mayor, and when you were campaigning for governor. Were you surprised by this?
Well, I don't know Mr. Hobson that well. I've met him and talked to him, and I don't know what that's about, and I don't think it's significant to me. I congratulate Mr. Lee on that. I think me being endorsed by the teachers is actually a really big deal. I have been a strong advocate for education reform. I was a leader in education reform, I think, in the state when I was mayor. I've embraced that subject with passion, and they haven't always agreed with me. But they know I'm opposed to vouchers, which Mr. Lee favors. I think that is going to be devastating to public education. They know that I am in favor of increasing teacher salaries and making education the priority where I know we got to put more resources in it. We don't waste money. You ask them to give us good budgets and make the cuts where there's waste, but we got to be doing more in education. And they know it's a passion for me. So that's a group that at times have not been in favor of my reform efforts, but I think in this race they see me as a guy who really cares about education and who's willing to do what we need to do to keep this state moving forward after the great efforts of Bill Haslam and Phil Bredesen.
As a follow-up, Mr. Hobson expressed concern about your experience. The Shelby County system is a majority school system, and so is the Davidson County system, which you were mayor of. Is there much of a difference?
Well, there's a difference in size and there's a difference in challenges. I mean, I'll say this about Memphis. When I was elected mayor in '07, one of the first things I did was to meet with education leaders in Memphis to learn about efforts that they were doing there. They were kind of doing more around the country than we were in Nashville. And so I learned from them, and that's what led me to recruit Teach for America to Nashville, the New Teachers Project in Nashville, to work on a variety of education reforms that I think has helped our city. So I have to tip my hat to Memphis starting in '07.